today wants.
Professor Alan Dershowitz, author of The Case for Israel. Norman Finkelstein, your response.
Well, I appreciate Alan Dershowitz's seriousness, at least in these remarks. I have no intention whatsoever of getting involved in an ad hominem debate with Mr. Dershowitz. I'm interested in the facts. I was asked to come in and discuss his new book. I went home, purchased one copy. In fact, I purchased 2 copies. I read the book very carefully. I did what someone serious does with a book. I read the text. I went through the footnotes. I went through it very carefully. And there's only one conclusion one can reach, having read the book. And this is a scholarly judgment. It's not an ad hominem attack. Mr. Dershowitz has concocted a fraud. In fact, Mr. Dershowitz has concocted a fraud which, amazingly, in large parts, he plagiarized from another fraud. Now, I found that pretty shocking. I found it shocking coming from a Harvard professor. I find it shocking coming from any professor.
Now, we have to cut off at one point. I just want to warn everybody here that, although I'm not a litigious person, when you make allegations of plagiarism, when you make allegations of plagiarism, that's a technical term
I agree.
Which has great legal implications.
I agree.
And, you know, I can't obviously sit quietly by and,
you shouldn't.
and accept an allegation
let's look at the evidence.
Of plagiarism. All right,
let's look at the evidence.
Who is the plagiarism from?
Let's look at the evidence. In the first 2 chapters of your book, you extensively reproduce all of Joan Peters' pages in her book. I read it carefully. In 1984,
show me
I'm going to show you.
Show me one sentence.
I am going to show you.
Okay.
I think I made available the charts to you.
No, you've shown me nothing. Let's start with that. That's
okay.
A categorical lie.
Alan,
what you're hearing now on radio is that a claim that Mr. Finkelstein made available to me certain charts.
No,
that
I
is a categorical lie.
No. Okay, Mr. Dershowitz, I think you had about 5 minutes time. I wasn't looking at the clock. If we're going to have a civil debate, you're going to have to remain...
But it's not going to be a debate about me. Let me be very clear about that.
I'm not debating you. I have no interest in you, Mr. Dershowitz. Right. None at all. I'm interested in the scholarship, and I'm interested in the facts, and I'm interested in your book. Now, in 1984, one Joan Peters published a book called From Time Immemorial. The book was universally recognized by serious scholars to be a fraud. Without wanting to toot my own horn, I'm widely recognized as the person who exposed the fraud. I know that book inside out. I read it at least 4 times, and I went through all 1,854 footnotes. I started to read your book, Mr. Dershowitz. I then came to Chapter 1, footnotes 10, footnote 11, footnote 12, footnote 13, footnote 14, footnote 15, footnote 16. All of the quotes are from Joan Peters. They are so from Joan Peters that you have a long quote here from Mark Twain on pages 23 to 24. I turn to Joan Peters, page 159 to 60. The identical quote from Twain with the ellipses
is the Twain quote wrong?
With the ellipses,
is the Twain
let me
quote
finish,
wrong?
sir.
No, but the key
with
is
the ellipses in the same places. The identical quote from Twain with the ellipses in the same places.
It's been widely quoted, as you know.
Really,
now,
Mr. Dershowitz?
What's your point? Is it a correct quote?
Let me finish, Mr. Dershowitz.
I want to ask you a question. Is it an accurate quote of Twain? Did Twain say
Professor
what
Dershowitz,
I quote him as
the
saying?
way we can have a civilized discussion here is that each person will get a chance to make their point and won't be cut off. So
you have nearly a full-page quote from one William Young, a British consul from May 1839.
Is it an accurate
quote? On page 8, I'm going to finish, sir. On page 18 of your book, I turn to Joan Peters, page 184, the identical quote with the ellipses. I'm holding it up for the camera. Perhaps they can see. This is the length of the quote.
Is it an accurate quote?
The ellipses in the identical place. Last point. I'm not going to go through Chapter 2 where there are 29 plagiarisms from Joan Peters.
Wait. Let's be very clear. It is not plagiarism to quote Mark Twain correctly. That's not plagiarism.
Except if you cite Mark Twain and not Joan Peters. I'm a professor, sir. I know what plagiarism is.
And plagiarism is? Well, let's hear